Let me just start off this review with the disclosure that no, Samsung is not sponsoring this review. I paid for this phone with my own money, honey. This Galaxy S9 Plus, I paid for it. No sponsorship. Now let's get going. About a year ago, my Note 3 was destroyed after my friends threw it into a pool with me attached. I wasn't that mad though, because I've successfully revived wet electronics in the past. I even had an iPod Touch that fell into a river of dead bodies in the piss of 1,000 urban nomads, known to Houstonians as the Buffalo Bayou, or more recently, Harvey's urethra. Anywho, after my Note 3 took a dihydrogen monoxide chlorine bath, I disassembled it like that scene in Forrest Gump where he so briskly and sexily takes apart his army rifle. And after a few days, I put it into the toaster oven at work on the lowest setting, on the warm setting. But instead of 150 degrees or so, warm on this toaster oven apparently meant under Satan's Taco Bell fueled butthole as he sits on his throne on the surface of the sun. Okay, sassy. In other words, I'm dumb and I melted the old bitch. And from there I suffered, using an old single-core Samsung, probably from 1835, that I used while I rode out Harvey in an old office building. Say hi, Jack. After the hurricane, I ordered a Note 4. But it took a long time to get to me since Harvey had Leroy Jenkins'd some northern shipping routes into the city. And yeah, that last sentence kind of sounded like some old correspondence between Philadelphia and the Western Territories during the Revolutionary War. Dearest Sarah, I pray you receive my letter soon, but I fear Washington's miscreants have torn asunder many courier routes twixt you and I. I long for the warmth of your bosom. God save the Queen. Yours truly, Benedict Arnold. I loved my Note 4 as I loved my Note 3. I wouldn't have gotten the Note 4 if I didn't destroy the Note 3. And I wouldn't have gotten this S9 Plus if my Note 4 didn't brick out of nowhere. But here we are. I have a shiny new S9 Plus, somewhat begrudgingly, since I didn't want to upgrade. A fact upon which I believe lends this review some credibility, since I didn't even want to get this phone in the first place. In other words, I didn't want it, but now I have it. Here's what I think about it. If you've listened to the podcast of my radio show, Geek Therapy Radio, you may have heard me say a time or two that I don't particularly care. Can I say particularly? Particularly care about the flagship smartphone scene, as I believe smartphones have pretty much plateaued over the last 4 or 5 years. Cameras have gotten faster. Cameras have gotten better, processors have gotten faster, but largely the user experience hasn't changed a whole lot. Using social media is no different. Watching videos is really not that much different. Media consumption in general isn't much different from my Note 3 to my new Galaxy S9 Plus. It's just pretty much the same. It's plateaued. That's not to say that the S9 Plus isn't an astonishing execution of the state-of-the-art. It really is a technological marvel. Naturally, this leads me to the part of the video where I talk... You probably can't hear. Naturally, this leads me to the part of the video where I talk about the powerhouse specs of the current King of the Hill phablet. What a weird word, phablet. It sounds so floppy. Sounds like a little sack of giblets you pull from a small fowl's yogurt shooter. I digress. Here are the specs. You've probably seen the specs 100 times by now, but I'll plop the highlights up on the screen here, and you can pause it if you wish. All right, S9 Plus, let's dance. The S9 Plus is surprisingly hefty, but not in a bad way. Tipping the scales at 6.67 ounces, it's a very nice weight. It feels incredibly solid, like you've got something special. I want to say almost like a piece of fine jewelry. It's just a real nice, substantial device to hold in your hand. That is, if you can keep a grip on this dang thing. While it feels really nice, with a nice weight, this thing is so freaking slippery. My goodness. Sometimes it's like trying to hold onto that silly gas station toy. You know that rubber tube filled with water that no matter how hard you try, it only slips out of your grip? Well, here's a picture of it anyways. I'm definitely going to need a skin on this sexiness. The culprit is the Gorilla Glass 5 that makes up both sides of the phone. It is very scratch resistant and strong. Both of these descriptors mean that the glass is insanely smooth. It actually feels really nice to run your fingers over, whether merely sensually or serving a practical purpose like scrolling. And when you scroll, good lord is this screen amazing. This is a 6.2-inch AMOLED affair. AMOLED stands for Active Matrix Organic Light Emitting Diode, by the way. Hashtag TMYK! Anyway, it is an 18.5 by 9 screen ratio at 1440 by 2960. 529 pixels per inch. It looks amazing. It's just one of those things, make no mistake. The screen on my Note 4 was great. This one's just better. I'm sure the screen on your current phone is great, but this one is just better. I can't even detect a hint of ghosting. Something I have noticed in the YouTube app, however, is this weird pixelated gradient thing happening on black colors. Now, again, this is only in YouTube, and it may be the compression being used by the YouTube app, but still, it's there, and I thought you guys should know about it. One of the reasons I think it's so good is that the display is sandwiched so close to the Gorilla Glass. It's like you're touching the actual pixels. It's crazy. Not that you can actually see the pixels. You can't. I'm just saying it's really great. The screen is just really, really good. The best I've seen on any device ever. The S9 Plus is running Android Oreo 8.0 as it darn well should, being that it costs around $800. That's a lot of money. There's no getting around it. It's a lot of money, but it's about $200 cheaper than the iPhone X. So it's a bargain. Powering this beast is the Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 or the Exynos 9810. We here in the United States and our friends in China get the Snapdragon 845, and everywhere else in the world, you're probably gonna get the Exynos 9810. So which chipset is better? This is America, and I ain't about to get gypped on power. Well, the answer is both. Both chipsets are better. Either chipset you're getting the best the market currently has to offer. Sorry, little sunflower. I think I hit it with my notes. Now, benchmarks don't tell the whole story, but they do set a benchmark. The Exynos 9810 is better in Geekbench, while the Snapdragon 845 is better in Antutu. Now, this is just a general measure. No matter what benchmarks you're running, you're gonna get results that vary. In Geekbench, the 9810 single-core performance clocks in around 3,500, while the multi-core is around 8,600. The Snapdragon 845 clocks in around 2,000 and 8,300, respectively. Now, my Snapdragon S9 Plus comes in around 2,430 and 8,352. Results will vary, of course, and your user experience won't vary one way or the other depending on these scores unless you got one that's just DOA. Moving over to Antutu, the tables are turned. The Snapdragon beats out the Exynos, 262,106 against 235,806. I think that might actually boil down to the different GPUs. Snapdragon phones get the Adreno 630. Exynos variants get the Mali G72 MP18. Having only personally dealt with the Adreno 630, I can confidently say it kicks copious gaming ass, chewing through anything and making no sweat out of anything in the Play Store. I know a lot of emulator fans are longing to hear this, but a certain emulator, PPSSPP, runs a certain Deity of Warfare game playably. Right out of the box, it's playable. And with some tweaking, I even got it up to 60 frames a second, smooth as butter, mostly. Point is, GOW is playable, at least on the Snapdragon 845 paired with the Adreno 630. I haven't tested the Exynos, but I'm sure it probably kicks ass as well. Amazing! No, I'm not going to post any footage of an emulator running a copyrighted game. Don't ask. I'm also not going to go into detail about retro console emulation. Of course it runs 8-bit and 16-bit emulators flawlessly. This is a Snapdragon 845 and Adreno 630 in the most powerful device, pocket device known to man right now. Of course it's gonna play Mario just fine. It's a 2018 flagship, of course it's gonna run Game Boy. I'm not mad at you though, it's all good, I'll still hold your hand in public. Anyways, the S9 Plus comes in 64, 128, and 256 gig internal storage variants. The S9 Plus even comes with 6 gigabytes of RAM. Yes, I know the Razer phone has 8 gigabytes, but honestly, 6 or 8, my girlfriend says it doesn't really matter, as long as it's not 4, or God forbid, 3. Right?
Right.
Jeez. Okay. I've got the 64 gig model, which compared to my Note 3's 32 gigabytes, seems voluminous. As far as storage go, I say you're better off saving a few bucks and just getting the 64 gig model, because you can put a micro SD card in this thing up to 400 gigabytes. You're all set. I've got a 64 gigabyte model with a 128 gigabyte micro SD card, and I'm good. Now onto the camera. This is one area that I will concede that smartphones have not plateaued. Phone cameras keep getting better and better, and the S9 Plus is the current cream of the crop. Everything I've seen online, S9 Plus is the best, like measurably the best. Almost everybody says it's the cream of the crop, and I believe it. By the way, all the footage you're watching right now is filmed on the S9 Plus, unless otherwise noted, like the glam shots of the phone are with my Nikon D3100. The S9 Plus comes with dual cameras, both at 12 megapixel, and you can choose the aperture. Well, you can choose the aperture or let the auto mode select it for you. Say in low light situations, that's awesome. You can choose an f-stop of 1.5 or 2.4. Again, depending on how much light you want to let hit the sensor. The rear camera, and by the way, everything with me on the screen, this is all front camera stuff. But the rear camera can shoot 4K at 60 hertz. You can even shoot in 720p at 960 frames per second. Cue glorious slow-mo glam footage. That is a Viper. Get the Viper. Turn the camera on it. That's a sweet Viper. Now the front camera, aka the camera you're looking at right now, has slightly lesser specs as you would come to expect. 8 megapixels with an f-stop of 1.7. In video, up to 1440p at 30 frames per second. That's not too shabby for a front-facing camera. It's an overkill selfie camera if that's what you're into. I don't think I'm pretty enough, but my mom says I am, so I really don't know what to believe anymore. Did I hear a cat?
No, it's kids throwing frisbees.
Now, other than radio talking, my main passion is audio engineering. You know, recording, mixing, mastering, all that good stuff. So in the audio department, I can confidently say that the S9 Plus does not disappoint. The stereo speakers, it's got an amplified ear speaker and of course the bottom firing speaker. Both of those paired together give you a good stereo image for a phone. Again, it's not like the Razer phone with the 2 front firing speakers, but it's still great. It's amazing. It is more than good enough to put on a podcast like Geek Therapy Radio, or even listen to some music. There's actual bass that's detectable in the audio. It's not just a loud tinny mess. You can actually hear a full range for a smartphone. Now, plugging in your headphones. What? Plugging in your headphones? There's a headphone jack? Yes. Plugging in your headphones will greet you with a DAC, a DAC, digital to analog converter, capable of decoding uncompressed audio files up to 32-bit 384 kilohertz. That's nuts. That still blows my mind. That blows my audio engineer mind. Back when I was in sound school, I couldn't even imagine a phone decoding such a monstrous bit rate. I don't even record that high. At the highest, I record 24-bit 192, 24-bit 192 kilohertz. And even then, it's rare. That's only on stuff like a couple acoustic guitars and a vocal. So yeah, the S9 Plus is just nuts. Let's go to a different part. The flavor of Bluetooth is 5.0, supporting A2, DP, LE, and aptX codecs. And paired with my Sony WH-1000X-M2s, they sound great. It sounds great. The Bluetooth sounds great. That's what I'm trying to say. Astonishing, in fact. I know this sounds crazy, especially coming from an audio engineer, but I actually prefer the Bluetooth, listening to my headphones over the Bluetooth. It just sounds so good. It sounds so good because of the new high bitrate transmission. It sounds amazing, especially with noise canceling. It's awesome. I still use the headphone jack. I appreciate that it's there. I've got my microphone plugged into it right now, and I still use it for earbuds and other cans that are wired. The S9 Plus has every sensor imaginable. Of course, it can read your irises and read your face like the iPhone X, but all I need is the fingerprint scanner. It unlocks the phone so blazingly fast that I'm not gonna register my iris or my face. No thank you, big brother. Using the S9 Plus day to day for a week now, I guess, has been an absolute treat. So if you're in the market for a new flagship, you would not be wasting your money on the Galaxy S9 Plus. It hits every mark perfectly except for maybe how slippery it is. And that's just a nitpick on my part. Yeah, and arguably the price. That's $800 is very expensive for anything. Maybe not a house, but what kind of shoebox are you gonna get for $800? As for battery life, I used to love my Note 4 for being the last Samsung flagship with a removable battery. But the S9 Plus has a 3,500 milliamp hour fuel tank. I can't kill this phone in a day. It's almost impossible. I've got no complaints about the battery. There's been a day or two where I've taken it off the charger at 100%, gone to bed with it still around 75%. Granted, I don't use my phone like a 16-year-old European girl, but still, I check it and I play the occasional emulator. 25% after 8 hours of light use, that's amazing. Your results will vary. Like I said, depending on your use. If you barely use it, just answer the random call or do a random text, this thing just sips power. Even if I could kill this thing in a day, it charges so fast that I'm just not even worried about it. You can even put it into this ultra power saving mode and have it last for a week, I'm saying. Easy. Now, I've only had the phone for about a week, but I haven't heard yet of any screen burnt-in issues. I leave my always-on display on, but I leave it on at the lowest settings. The Samsung Galaxy S9 hits it out of the ballpark. Like I said, if you're in the market for a new flagship, this would be money well spent. Now, all that said, I still think that smartphones have plateaued. And if I didn't break my Note 4, there would still be nothing on the market to make me want to upgrade from my Note 4. But if you want to upgrade, the S9 Plus is great. If your Note 4 broke, then I highly recommend getting an S9 Plus. But I had to get a new phone, and debatably, I think I chose the best the world has to offer. While I didn't want to upgrade from my Note 4, I have no buyer's remorse getting the S9 Plus. Nothing about it makes me feel like I've wasted my money on it, or that it wasn't worth the money. Whether I wasted it or not, of course, is debatable. Nokia came out with a new 3310 or whatever, and that thing costs like $60. So, $60 versus $800. The S9 Plus is just stunning. It's great. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. I'm not gonna beg you to subscribe to the YouTube. Of course you can if you want. I'd honestly just love for you to check out my radio show and subscribe to the podcast. It's called Geek Therapy Radio with yours truly, Johnny Hemberger, and it's available almost everywhere on almost every podcast app. So the iHeartRadio app, iTunes, Spreaker, Pocket Casts, almost everywhere. Just search for Geek Therapy Radio with Johnny Hemberger. Of course, I'm gonna include some links below. And don't forget to interact with me. My show is for fellow geeks. And guess what? We're all geeks about something. From gaming PCs to cars, sewing, surfing, everything. Astronomy, just literature, plays, everything. We're all geeks about something. So let me know what you're into, and it'll be on the show. So stay tuned. Be good to each other. And be good to yourself. Sometimes we forget that last part. Take care, and see you next time.